So finally, we're going to use these factors to solve equations. Section 6.6 is solving quadratic equations. Solving meaning equations you have an equal sign. You're going to end up with x equals. Finally, not just factor, not just simplify, not just factor, but actually solve. And for this, we're going to use the zero property. Anything times 0 is 0. Here's 0 times 5. Or if I had 13 times 0 is 0. That's called the zero property. Whenever you multiply two expressions and one of them is a 0, your result is always going to be 0. We're going to use that to our advantage here as we solve quadratics. When we solve quadratics, we always want to set them equal to 0 first. If they don't equal 0, that's going to be the first thing we do, is set the equation equal to 0. So if my equation is already factored, notice this is already factored. Factored meaning I have a multiplication problem. X minus 7 times x plus 2. This is factored. So if this times this equals 0, I'm ready to break this into two problems. Either the first factor equals 0 or the second factor equals 0. This is an equation equal to 0. I'm breaking that up into two equations. Either the first factor equals 0 or the second factor equals 0. And now I solve these separately. If I want to get x by itself, I'm going to add 7 to both sides. X equals 7 is one of my solutions. If I want to get x by itself, I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. And x equals negative 2 is one of my other solutions. So the two values for x that will make my equation true would be 7 or negative 2. So why don't you try practice 1. Looking at classroom example 2, again, this is already factored, which tells me either the first factor is going to equal 0 or the second factor is going to equal 0. The fact that when I multiply two expressions together and I get 0, either the first factor is equal to 0 or the second factor is equal to 0. And now I solve these separately. Let's get x by itself by adding 10 to both sides. X equals 10 is one solution. And here I want to get x by itself, so the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 1 from both sides. And then divide both sides by 3. So x equals 10 is one solution, and x equals negative 1/3 is the other solution. We like it when our equation is already in factored form. All right, so you try practice 2. Let's go ahead and look at classroom example 3. Now, this is also factored. This is x times 4x minus 3. So my first factor is the x. So either x equals 0 or 4x minus 3 equals 0. Well, I already have x equals 0. Don't forget about it. Draw a circle around it. It's part of the solution. X equals 0 will make your equation equal to 0. And the other solution, let's add 3 to both sides. So I get 4x is going to equal 3, and divide both sides by 4. X equals 3/4. So the two values for x that will make my equation true are x equals 0 and x equals 3/4.